Welcome to She Loves the Grid, where we discuss all things F1. Whether it's happening on the track, in the paddock, or beyond the grid, we'll talk about it all. And here we are. Welcome back. She Loves the Grid. I'm Claire.
And I'm Diane.
Lovely Diane. All right, let's get quickly into how was your week, because I thought a decent race that was getting in without controversy, and then, well,
I know. No. Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about my week except this, and the Olympics started, so this is my life the next few weeks. So.
At least the summer's here, and the Olympics won't interfere too much with racing now, right?
No, it's perfect, because what would I do with my time? Now I can be fully invested in watching the Olympics, and yeah, it'll be over just in time for racing to come back.
Yeah, not much here other than dealing with like nice warm weather, then lots of rain, and now as you see, I'm back in a hoodie because it's chilly again. So this weather, this summer here, but I'll take it. All right, well, let's get into this week because I'm on a time crunch. It's a Sunday, and we already had craziness that delayed our recording. So here we go.
Yes, it's oh my goodness. Okay, well, let's talk really quickly silly season. So Checo, we've been talking about him pretty much since the third race. I don't even know. It's been a while. So we all know his career's on the line. There's been rumors that he may not be back after this summer break. There is a meeting tomorrow at Red Bull, allegedly, and I've heard it called a crunch meeting. And it was also reported that Liam and Daniel are doing another filming day next week. So, I don't know. They recently had one, and there wasn't anything much to write home about. I think the word was underwhelmed with both Liam and Daniel's times. So we'll see what happens. After the race today, Christian commented and said that Checo going from second to eighth doesn't really impact their decision, which you and I were talking about. It kind of sounds like they have a decision, whether that is he's staying or he's going. Who knows? But today did not impact their decision. However, Christian also said that they need 2 cars in the constructor battle, and it's not great to go from second to eighth place.
I found something from Helmut Marko that I threw in the notes, like right as I was grabbing the last updates from everything that happened then, and he said that's not what we were expecting from. That's not what we expected from him, and he completely collapsed, especially in the last stint.
Oh. Well,
yeah, I just always has
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay, so wait. So very quickly, the other thing, so James Vowles has come out again and said, yeah, Logan's seat is not safe for the second half of the year. And then today, as I'm like waiting around for all the FIA stuff to get settled, I thought, hold on, please. Because I'm thinking to myself when I heard that, who would Williams put in there? And would they bring somebody up from their junior team, or not their junior team, but their academy team, and put that person in for this year and then have a real driver? And then I thought, wait a second, if Red Bull dumps Checo over the break, would Williams say, okay, we usually work with Mercedes, but we'll take Checo for the rest of this season. Bye-bye, Logan. And then keep Checo for next year. I just thought of that, and I thought maybe that could happen.
Plausible, because Checo could at least potentially get them some, more points and stuff. And
yeah. I mean, again, you need 2 cars in the mix, and we know Logan really. I mean, he's had a good couple races, but today wasn't anything to write home about. So very interesting. So speaking of Helmut, we know that he has signed on to stay with Red Bull through the end of 2026. So most likely Max is not going anywhere, as much as Toto would like to have him at Mercedes. Max is going to go wherever Marco goes. So I think he's pretty safe at Red Bull. Major news, which we all thought was coming, is Ocon signed with Haas. I still don't love the decision with Ollie Behrman. I don't love the pairing, but okay.
Yeah.
Like, just me. And then in team principal news, because we can't just limit silly season to the drivers. We have to include, people like Adrian Newey and Helmut Marko. At Alpine, Bruno Famin is out after this summer break. So he will stay with Renault and work in other areas of their motor sports team area, whatever department, but he will no longer be the team principal. So this is the second year in a row that Alpine have ousted their team principal in the middle of the season. And no word yet on if somebody's going to replace him, but I'm thinking that Flavio has, coming in, the person who's supposed to be banned for life from F1, but is allowed back. I think him coming in, he's cleaning house. He's making changes. Yep. So more shakeup at Alpine this year. Probably the team with the most shakeup this year.
That was interesting. Very interesting.
Very. Let's talk about the lids. Yeah, lids and liveries.
My favorite, Deadpool. I should have worn my Deadpool shirt today.
You should have. You should have. If you're not on our YouTube, go take a look at it. But the crossover promotion with Red Bull, oh my gosh, Deadpool, Red Bull, Deadpool, it all rhymes. With Deadpool. I know this is your favorite.
Yeah, I mean Deadpool is one of my favorite movies, right? I've seen 1 and 2 a million times. 3 is out now, and I can't wait to go see it. I love all the details. I love it's for Deadpool and Wolverine, so I love the claws. I love that they took it even further. I think I've got more slides about that, but they've got where they went into their jumpers, and they've even got the claw marks there.
Yeah.
And of course, where they announced race day, the little pendants, the love pendants from Deadpool and Wolverine, it's his best friends on it. Yeah. They showed those in Comic-Con over the stadium and part of the drone show that showed them coming together and like almost kissing, which was
so cool. Because one half, like if you're not on our YouTube, one half of it's the best friends hearts that you see people wear. So one friend gets one side and the other friend gets the other, and half of it is a Deadpool and the other half is Wolverine. So
I love it. Yeah. And then furthermore, I love how they just continued with it. And of course, Esteban brought back his helmet, but then underneath, I noticed that they're wearing the red for Deadpool, but they're underneath their shirts were yellow to be like Wolverine. So they just really kept that theme going. And he's got, make believe claw marks right there, or claws. Yeah. So the nerd in me is just very, very happy.
It's amazing. And I love a theme when it's pulled all the way through. And I think I commented that on there when they showed the livery. I said, Esteban better be bringing the helmet back, and we need to carry this through. And they sure did. I loved all of it. Absolutely amazing.
I loved it. Just Deadpool. I've seen so much about.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've just seen so much about Deadpool in the last couple of days anyway. So just to top off my week with F1 and Deadpool combined, which is like heaven.
Yes. And I feel like it did not get a lot of airplay today, but they made the most of it in the lead up too. So
absolutely.
Oh yeah, that
is Yuki's helmet, which is gorgeous.
So is this Yuki and Daniel's? Because Daniel had a special helmet too.
Oh,
so I think the top is Yuki.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't want to see this wrong. I know it's a character, but I don't know if is it considered an anime character?
I think it's anime.
Okay. I love it. I mean, look at the detail on that. It's just incredible.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And then Daniel's, I think they were showing their helmets together, and I think Yuki said they're going to have a hard time telling us apart in the cars because the fronts were very, very similar, and the backs not so much. So yeah, gorgeous. Only special lids. Oh well, Esteban bringing his back, but
last
year he used that last year.
So boring practice. Other than it was raining on Saturday morning, and we had a red flag, and
I think the biggest thing like practice was FP3 when Lance spun and damaged his car big time.
They basically built him a brand new car.
Yes. Yeah. And think about the time. There's not much time between FP3 and qualifying. And they did give him a brand new car. It was a new floor, new power unit, like new front ring, new everything. So the fact that he got out there for Q1 with a piece of new car, props to the Aston Martin team, because holy moly, insane.
Because he had that spun, hit the wall. The front left wheel was just kind of dangling. I mean, it's some major damage.
Yeah.
Major damage.
Yeah. Very, very crazy. And I think like when we talk about quali, all I kept thinking about this weekend is it really was all about strategy, because you can't change your car between quali and the race. And quali was a rainy day, and they were expecting today to be dry, which it was. So, and it's already a crazy track anyways, because you've got the straights where, you need downforce, and then you've got the slow turns. And so you have to really decide like, which way do we want to go? But add in a wet Saturday, a dry Sunday, like the teams had to fully optimize the car setup. And I don't know why. This weekend, I just kept thinking like the strategy, all of that stuff, mind-boggling to me. So
it was. And qualifying on inters was just the craziest thing too. Everybody to qualify on inters, and every time they kept going back from, I'm like, how many sets of inters do they have? Because some of them just kept, we're just going to get a new set. I'm like, this is Q1. And you're already on your second set. You've got two more. And that's a lot of inters to go through.
Because in Q2, that's when I made a note, because we talked last week about how big this track is and how sometimes it can be raining in one part of the track and not another part. And sure enough, on F1 TV, during Q2, they showed the track and they said this area, and I think it was like corners 5 through 9, you need your inters, and the rest of the track was dry. So again, going back to the strategy of like, okay, do we just keep our slicks on and then we go carefully between 5 through 9?
I think it was McLaren who talked about how they had people that were actually had on scooters and gone to other areas of the track so they could feel what it was and not trust radar, because radar was just, they couldn't get it figured out. It was crazy. It's got its own ecosystem on there.
What's that?
It's kind of like it's got its own areas of ecosystem all throughout the track,
Yeah, it is insane. Joe did impede in Q1. He did impede Max. And Max was so funny because he's like, hello, what the F? Which I used yesterday because that is totally me when I'm driving. Like, Max is everybody, I think, because that is 100% me when I'm driving. Like, hello, what the F? But Joe did get a 3-place grid drop, which, I mean, he had a weekend not to remember for sure. But yeah, I want to say that was kind of the main thing out of that. And then Q2, I don't know. They were like losing their rear, touching the gravel, but nobody spun out. So that was really good. Really, really good. And then Q3, I was listening, but I had to take my dog to the vet. So kind of missed most of Q3.
Yeah, it's the big thing on, to me, Q3 was, there wasn't a lot. And to me, it was just they kind of like out of the blue, like who was actually going to make it and how that last order was going to be. That was kind of crazy, And I thought it was kind of interesting about the push hard and the conversation though about Max pushing for P1 and not helping Checo get more of a pull and all that kind of stuff that. Because he knew he was getting the penalty and all this. So there was some interesting chatter about that. But otherwise, it was interesting. It was your normal, like, all the last minute shootouts at the end, which I thought was kind of fun to watch. Yeah. But on enters, like, what were you going to get out of enters?
Right. I was shocked that Charles jumped up there because Ferrari wasn't looking great at all in any of the qualifying. Like most of Q1 and Q2, I was like, get out of the bottom. Like one of them always seemed to be flirting with the bottom. And then you had, Yuki and Alex were all jumping up. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? So when Charles ended up in second, I was like, where did that come from? I mean, he put it all together right when he needed to. That's for sure.
I think he was the only one they said that really got a good jump of all the other people are trying at the end. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
That was amazing. Well, we knew Max was going to have his 10th-place grid penalty because we talked about that weeks ago on here because we already knew that was coming. So he really did want to have first, so he would only drop down to 11th. Didn't help. But Yuki said, hold my beer to Pierre, and his 50 grid place drop a few weeks ago, and Yuki had a 60 place grid
I
penalty.
loved his response too. Oh,
Wait.
what? Jesus.
Yes. And then today it is after the race, he said, well, I basically started in Zandvoort, so I think I did pretty good getting to P17. Like, oh, Yuki, he's a global treasure. But no, it didn't matter. He went out in Q1. It didn't matter. He had that 60 place grid penalty. He was starting at the back anyways, but Joe joined him there with his place. I did think, like, to start the race today, the national anthem was beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't usually talk about the national anthems wherever we're at, but she did an amazing job.
Yeah, it was really pretty.
It was really, really pretty. So props to the singer. I did not jot her name down, but props to her. That was incredible. All right, so let's talk about really quickly the getaway, because oh my goodness, Charles, I thought, had a good jump, but Lewis, second week in a row, amazing. Yeah, we had a race last week. I had to think about
that. To me, it was like Perez looked like he was just couldn't get it, and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be like last year, where Perez jumps ahead and gets the advantage, and no, like it seemed to just not connect for him.
Not at all. And Lando had a terrible start because he hit the gravel and lost 4 spots, and he just never. I don't think he just ever recovered from that at all. So for him, terrible. Max gained a couple spots early on. I mean, he's passing, he's 11th place, so he's passing a Williams and, cars like that. But yeah, both Checo and Lando did not win on that at all. That was a bummer. I mean, okay, let's just talk about the end of the race.
Yeah.
Mercedes. Oh my gosh. So Lewis drove an incredible race, right? He did everything right. He got the jump off the start, did everything right. And at the end, he just could not catch George. And George making the decision. Yeah, one stop George. I mean, when he came on the radio and he's like, let's think about that. Let's think about a one stopper. They had nothing to lose. He should have been in 7th place. He had nothing to lose. They're like, okay, let's try it. And he managed those tires perfectly.
I love this thing. 34 laps.
Yes, he pitted on lap 10. It's 44 races. So lap 10, he goes in and gets some hard tires and is like, let's just give it a shot. Let's see what happens. I mean, who would have thunk it? I kept thinking, even at the end with those final 4 laps, I thought for sure Lewis would catch him. I thought George's tires are going to fall off. They're going to, the wear's just going to be too much. He's going to lose rear grip, and Lewis will easily pass him. No, couldn't do it.
Yeah, that 500 that I put up, that what it said for the I can put that back up. On our channel, I got this neat thing that I got it from F1 that they called him the tire whisperer, which I thought was hysterical. 34 laps at 238 kilometers for us non-Europeans. It's over 140 miles.
Isn't that crazy?
On those tires, they're only rated to be in the 20s, right, for laps. And they went 34 laps.
Insane. Absolutely insane. I really thought in those last few laps, especially the way Oscar was catching up too, I thought, oh, Lewis is going to get him. He's a 7-time world champion. He's going to pull a move. And he locked up, very small lockups, but he had a couple lockups that just kept, wouldn't allow him to get past. And George freaking wins. And then. The reason why we're recording late is because Claire was on it. I switched over to the Olympics. I'm like, okay, summer break.
I was waiting for those great images. Sorry to interrupt. I was waiting for those great images from F1 that always shows, they always put the 1, 2, 3 and the 7, 4 through 10. I had that for the winners. And then I was waiting on the standings. We always put those up. It's really colorful. It shows you the change of driver standing, constructor standing. Been waiting. And then I refresh. And all of a sudden, George has been called into the steward's office because his car is 1.5 kilograms underweight.
Yep. 1.5. Lewis
So
had
maybe-
already left. I don't
Yeah.
even know if George was still there because the people on scene weren't sure if George was still there when the stewards called them in.
Yeah, and it said the final report said team representatives came, so he didn't report. Team representatives for the car came, and they determined that his car was underweight, and so the big old he has been disqualified.
Ugh. And the picture, that picture was him right after the race when he won, and he's actually soaking it in, thinking, "I can't believe I've just won the second race of the season." And I did it.
They're waiting to be interviewed because they were talking. I think they were talking to Oscar right then.
Yep. And now we're using it as a heartbreak photo.
Yeah, and so Toto came out and said, we have to take our disqualification on the chin. We have clearly made a mistake and need to ensure we learn from it. We will go away, evaluate what happened, and understand what went wrong. To lose a 1-2, because that would have made the fourth team this season with a 1-2 finish, but that's now gone. Yeah. It's frustrating, and we can only apologize to George, who drove such a strong race. Another kind of apology, because remember, he was leading that one race, and they had to box the car.
Yeah.
And he almost won. Lewis is, of course, promoted to P1. He was the fastest guy on the 2-stop and is a deserving winner. So despite this qualification, there are many positives we can take for the weekend, blah, 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 blah. So they took it, and they took that. That was posted a little bit before we started recording, but unfortunately, they still hadn't updated all the images to show the update to the standings and stuff.
Yeah.
But
and that's okay. We can always talk about that next week. But I do feel for George because he called his own strategy. I think he's the one that said, "Hey, let's do this." He worked those tires perfectly. According to Ruth on, she's a former strategist, said he needed to keep the tire degradation to like 0.05 or 0.5, and he kept it right there in order to make it to the end. This was through no fault of his own that he was just disqualified. No points. Doesn't help the team and the constructors because now you have only one driver with points. I feel for George, like to be on such a high, and then he's probably on a plane and gets word of that. I mean, what?
Yeah,
that's terrible. Oh, I feel
so
bad.
That makes
Lewis's second win this year. Moving on. This is Lewis's second win. So, and honestly, the last 3 of 4 races have been won by Mercedes. The last 3 of 4 heading into the summer break have been won by Mercedes. A few weeks ago, we said, are they back? They've won 3 of 4 now.
That's pretty cool. And then for Lewis, that makes his 105th win.
Amazing.
And he got driver of the day.
Yay. Good driver of the day. It also, like, just as bad as I feel for George, because again, this had nothing to do with him. I feel for Lewis too, because he missed out on a podium celebration. We know how moved he was and how much it meant when he won Silverstone, and to win this race a couple races after his first win in over 2 years, like that's a bummer too.
And he was doing so well too, leading the race, and had it not been for the strategy, which the commentators were really big to point out that Mercedes usually follows the same strategy and on both cars, and for them to change that mid-race, George Lewis was a little not so excited at the end of the race.
He was not. His post-race interviews, he was like, "I'm happy for the team," and literally that's how he said it. There was no smile. There was no, even intonation in his voice. Just, I'm happy for the team. And they asked him about George, and he was just kind of like, "Yeah, we had a 1-2," and then he kind of perked up a smidge after that. But he wasn't happy. But it wasn't like they planned it either. I feel like it was kind of like George said, "Hey, what about?" And they're like, why not? Let's try it. You're either going to be first or you're going to be 7th. And
if the tires are feeling good and they didn't know they could do it before,
No, they did. They just did not think about it. But I think, okay, we've said this almost every race since like Miami, but this year is insane. It's absolutely craziness. And it was already a great story. We talk about every race, there's been a story, right? It's first wins, it's, battles. And here we have another story where George calls his own strategy, the tire whisperer, the whole 9 yards. And now it turns into something else. George disqualified, Lewis on. I mean, the story, you cannot write these things. You can't. You absolutely cannot. So to have another crazy story coming out of a race, since we've been watching, they have not had a season like this. And
it's been exciting.
Yeah, very. And I hope people have stuck around, because I know people were giving, to people who watch Drive to Survive, and you don't know. And maybe we talked about maybe earlier this year that viewership was lowering, and, people were kind of maybe falling out. I hope they're not, because this season has been so exciting. This is when, this is what we've all been waiting for, competitiveness. And so I saw these couple things. So this has been the most competitive season since 2012. So there's that. The top 4 teams had very consistent lap times. This was the closest non-safety car finish between the top 3 since 2016, with 1.173 seconds. And you've got 4 different teams fighting for a win every race. To have it be that close, 1.173 seconds, this year is exciting, people. We need to get more people on board. That's my feeling. More people on board. Let's talk really quickly about Ferrari, because with George's disqualification, it moves Lewis up, it moves Oscar to P2, and now Charles P3.
Yep. And interesting about that, just before you get to Ferrari, is regardless that F1 has not updated the website, but their points yet, it doesn't matter much, because just Perez gets 2 more points, or 1 more point, Max gets a couple more points, or 2 more, whatever. But it did drop Perez down, I think, in the standings, and they might have just updated it. Oh, they just updated it.
They did just update it? Okay. So Perez was 5 places behind Max last week. Did it drop him?
How many points?
No, he was 5 places.
5 places. Right now he's
more
showing
than
100
points, which is part of his contract.
He's currently 6 places, it shows, and 140 something points. But I swear that's the same as last week. I think they're in the middle of updating the points now.
Okay. Yeah. Just crazy. But for Ferrari, first team in F1 history to reach 10,000 points.
Yeah, Yay! I've got that, because I thought that was neat to look at that graphic that they did. Isn't that awesome?
I mean, the history. I love the graphic. You've got a baby Alonso in there, and Sebastian Vettel and Charles. They didn't put Carlos. Oh, there he is. Okay, now I see him. Next Senna. I mean, all the greats. The history of this team is insane. And I mean, that's really cool. That really
is so cool.
10,000
championship points. I mean, that's outstanding.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm glad to see Ferrari on the podium, because I feel like we're just kind of there. We're on the fringes of that top 4. So I was really happy to see Charles is now promoted up. We got 2 races before Monza, and we need to be on a podium in Monza. But Carlos, where did he even finish? I want to say 8th or 7th.
He finished 7th, and then with Westlaw, he'll move him up to 6th.
Right. Okay, so that's not bad. It was funny because in his he came up to the F1 TV team, and Will Buxton said, "Who would have thought that, this could be a 1 pit stop race, or did anybody think a 1 stop was possible?" And Carlos is like, "I did. That's why I started on hards." But then it didn't quite go. They switched him. He tried to go long because other teams were undercutting, and he tried to go long, and then they moved him to, I think, a medium, and he only stayed on that for 7 or 8 laps. So he said he needs to look at the data, but the strategy just did not work the way that they thought it would. So, but that's okay. But Max finished 5th, but he still finished ahead of Lando by 1. And Perez trying to do everything he can, even though he dropped from 2nd to 8th, he got fastest lap. So He's trying. He is
Yeah,
dead.
so these are updated because originally they have updated the points now because Russell was higher. Now he's been dropped down. So Max is 277 with Lando 199. Charles at 177, so 22 behind Lando. Oscar is right behind Charles, 10 points behind Charles. Carlos is 5 points behind Oscar. Lewis is 12 points behind Carlos. Sergio is almost like 19 points behind Lewis. So Sergio is still seventh because Russell losing all those points dropped him down, and he would have been higher.
I think that moved Oscar ahead of Carlos. I don't think Oscar was ahead of Carlos. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think
he was not. You're right. That moves Oscar up. So Oscar just moved up. Wow. And so now Sergio is 6 places behind Max, and he's 146 points behind Max.
Yeah. And like we said a few weeks ago, that part of his contract is he can't be more than 100 points behind Max, and he can't be more than 5 places behind Max in the driver's standing, and he is both. So when Christian made that comment, today doesn't have an impact, I think they have already decided. They'll either let him continue because they want to keep the money, or they're going to say, you know, we could have another driver that's going to be in the fight and we'll get our money from the constructor win.
Yeah, Mercedes is now, McLaren is now 366 and Red Bull at 408 for constructor, where Ferrari is 345, so 21 points behind McLaren.
Wow. I mean, McLaren has been the team, especially over the last several races, that have just escalated. I mean, they have the most team points, and I don't remember what it is, like the last 5 races or something, than anybody else, because they're on it. And Oscar getting another podium today, that's major. Absolutely major. And Oscar looked good. He was out there, like, he's outperforming Lando I think this whole weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, he looked really good, but I did wonder, like, did McLaren mess up their strategy again? Like, they pitted Lando a little late at one point. I think that he could have undercut Max, but they opted not to bring him in. I don't know. They brought in Piastri, the 4.4 second pit stop.
It was a horrible pit stop. We're talking about the pit stops. They're just getting. I think everybody needs the summer break. They need the summer break. They're tired.
Yes, we have to remember this is we're 24 races this year, and it's long and it's tiring, and you have back-to-back races or back-to-back-to-back races and the travel and everything else. Like, it's a lot. And the pit stops on Piastri, he missed his mark. Poor front wing guy. Like, he took the brunt of that, but it could have made the difference in him winning. So it's like the little things add up. And so McLaren, I think once they can dial all that in together, their strategy is working. The drivers are, hitting everything perfectly. The pits are hitting everything perfectly. I think it's going to be lights out. I think they will overtake Red Bull.
I agree, because the car is finally on point. And Mercedes is catching up too. I just think they just keep having these odd breaks. You had George now with the car underweight. You had him before with the what was it, a fuel leak or a water leak or something? They were detecting something that they just pulled him out. Like they've had a couple of good ones, and obviously Lewis is driving phenomenally. So it's nice to see that competition. And like you said it perfectly. This has been such an exciting, competitive year, and it's been great to go from it's always Max. So we're getting different anthems and seeing different people up there, and it's not always the same every time. And you're seeing a battle, and Max even saying the car is not there and they're having to work for it. It's not, at least comparatively, right? So
yes,
kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 things with that. He did say, they do not have the car to go from 11 to 1 like they've done in the past. And he said, I think going from 11 to 6 is with the car that we have is pretty good. Like, he was pretty happy with that. And he's right. And I still keep thinking, from Miami on, when Adrian Newey announced he's leaving the team, they have not performed as well. And they had an upgrade in Hungary, and it's not, I mean, Max looked great in qualifying. He looked great in practice, but the car can't make up the 10-place grid penalty. So, wow.
Yep.
What are you going to do?
Well, that ended up being a different, discussion than we thought it was going to be, because it was supposed to be all George, and then, oh my gosh. So what, still a great race. And a great race, and a last minute, I thought it was going to be like, oh yeah, we can record pretty quick because, and then a little controversy, big change there at the end. But anyway,
this whole season, fun. It was summer break. I think it's a great way to go to the summer break. The teams, most of them, I think they have through this weekend to kind of close things down and, get the cars back and put stuff away. And clearly Red Bull is going to be doing, a filming session, and they have a meeting tomorrow, possibly about Checo. But after that, there's no coming into the office. There's no working on the cars. You are out. Offices locked down. So the teams need it. Like you said, we all need it. The Olympics are on. So we need to all put our focus over there and then come back for Zandvoort in the end of August. Or towards the end of August, I guess I should say.
Yeah, and then I don't know if we're going to do much in recording between now and then. Maybe an update. There's enough happening with silly season. Otherwise, definitely maybe one prepping for the race, or definitely after the race. But then not long after that, Monza.
Yay! I know it's going to be here before we know it. But yes, we might pop on, we may not. We'll see how we feel. I don't know. Maybe it'll just be a quick hello. But this was a great way to end it. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's it.
Yeah,
that was cool. It was crazy,
as always.
I'm choking on the air as we end.
Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and a review. To stay up to date with She Loves the Grid and get all the behind-the-scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at She Loves the Grid and on Facebook at facebook.com/She Loves the Grid. Thank you for joining us for the ride this week.